Second post. Minute.
Yes, sir, we are live. We can begin.
Hello, and welcome to a webinar which is arranged by ESAR organizations in cooperation with the Zydus people. I would like to say something about in difficult COVID-19 situations that arrived, emergency condition which is arrived, where I can say, and even our Prime Minister is saying that let's stay safe and stay at home. As we are the front warriors, we understand that we need to take some precautions to prevent the infections to our fraternity. So let us not now wasting the time. Today's lecture is Right Approach for Stimulation Protocol in ART, where we are going to discuss beyond AMH and hyporesponders also. So the first of all thing, I want to say something about that within stimulation. This is the slide that I will like. What is your goal? We know that everybody goal is something safety, efficacy, cost, and patient acceptability. But what you are accepting a goal in a 2020, 2020 or 2021 is that you need to reduce the pickup cycles. So as much of reducing the pickup cycle. And what will be the last goal? The last goal will be something one is done. That means we want to prevent, we want to say something, explain and counsel the patient that we'll try our best using the markers and whatever the other genetic markers available to reducing the unnecessary pickups. And again, of course, we also reduce to make our clinic OHSS free clinic and eliminate the OHSS. Now, before starting, I want to add something about the physiology, and everybody is knowing about the ovarian stimulation, the corpus luteal regressions. And after the corpus luteal regression, the estrogen and progesterone is going to decrease. And because of the estrogen and progesterone is going to decrease, if you have a first chain that is most important in our stimulation, it is called FSH window. After the falling of the menstruations, second, third, after the falling of the menstruation, this FSH will have some increase. It is considered as FSH threshold, which is lasting for a certain time, very small time durations in the natural cycle. But if you consider this FSH threshold or FSH window, the importance of FSH window, you can say something. If it is prolonged with a certain dose threshold of the FSH, then you can have a better recruitment. So the importance clinically of the FSH window is for the recruitment. And later on, there is a selection, there is a dominance, and there is ovulation. So we can understand what is the importance of FSH window to recruit the more and more number of the follicles. Now, if this is the importance of the FSH window, then what is the importance of the LH in the ovarian stimulations? Is it FSH is the only hormone which is required for the effect of on the granulosa cells? We can say no. There is some papers and evidence suggests that subendogenous LH is required for the effect of the FSH. And this LH, with the effect of the CYP17, it will convert more and more progesterone, which is secreted by the FSH, into androgen. And that androgen is going to granulosa cells. And on the 7th or 8th day, with the synergistic effect of the LH receptor on the granulosa cells by FSH, it converts more and more androgen to estrogen. And that estrogen is responsible for the later on in the natural cycle for the ovulations. So we can understand that subendogenous LH is required. But majority of the cases that there is subendogenous LH which is not. So now we need to discuss about the subendogenous LH, means what is LH window and clinical importance. So we can understand that this LH is responsible for the effect of the FSH, but if this LH is higher, so if you put more LH, and that more LH means if it is more than 6.8 to 10, or upper limit might be 5, so 1.2 to 5. If more than that, then again it is having a deleterious effect on the oocyte column. And if there is LH is less than 1, then there is no effect of the FSH, so there is a problem of the recruitment and number of those. So now our aim in the stimulation protocol that we do have a certain threshold of the FSH with the effect of the endogenous LH, where LH should be not beyond 5 to disturb the oocyte quality. And I can understand that LH is a very judicious and very notorious hormone. If you add more, then it will spoil the oocyte quality. So this is the influence of this all physiology in the clinical part. Now, when we want to stimulate, we are basically logically divide a patient in the two groups. One is good prognosis and second is low prognosis. And as we know, there are a lot of biomarkers. Age is the individual biomarkers of the quality of the oocyte. Apart from that, the quantity marker, we have a FSH, AMH, and antifollicle count. And by and large, we all people are knowing that we are dividing the good prognosis and low prognosis by quantitative biomarkers in a routine practice by AMH and antifollicle count. So by and large, logically, we divide that low prognosis means the patient, those who are having a less than 2 AMH, and the good prognosis means the patient, those who are having a more than 2 AMH. More than 2 AMH, it includes normal responder and hyper responder, and less than 2 AMH, we can consider all the poor responders. Now, age is an individual biomarker, and we can divide the prognosis of the patient by age is less than 35 is a good prognosis, and more than 35 is a poor prognosis or low prognosis of the patients. Now we need to say something about that how many oocyte that we will require, minimum threshold. We will just find out the minimum threshold for the making a 1 euploid embryo, and then we will find out the maximum threshold where the live birth rate is high. And then we will find out that if this live birth rate is higher at this threshold of the oocyte, then what is the dose required? So first we will start about the how many oocytes are needed for at least 1 euploid embryo. This is a good retrospective study in February 2016 by Fertility Sterility. Here 1,200 patients where oocyte collection was done, and oocyte was freezed because of the non-availability of the sperm or the bad quality of the sperm, or we can consider it as a socially freezing. And down the line, in 1 to 2 years, the sperm was collected, and then it is inserted inside the eggs and divided into the different age. And they find out, then they culture it up to blastocyst, and they take the biopsy, and they find out the per oocyte capacity to convert into euploid blastocyst according to age. And by that, we can come to know that as age is lower, that means 25 to 30 years of the age, the oocyte capacity is 8.5% or more. When it is 30 to 35 years of the age, it is around 6.5%, 35 to 40 is around 4.5%, and more than 40 years is 2.5%. According to that somebody's created a hypothesis of creating a one calculator. By that, we can consider that when the age is less than 35, if you see minimum 6 cumulus is required to form a 1 euploid blastocyst. When age is more than 36 or more, you require 11 to 18 oocytes. And as we know that as age is increasing, AMH is low, AFC is low. So might be possible there is a role of a cryoaccumulations, double stimulations, or if we fail at the end of the day, we need to have to counsel the patient regarding the donor oocytes. So this is the calculation by this. We can say something as age increases, we require more number of the oocyte. Now, another point is that will age increase the aneuploidy? Yes, age is going to be increase the aneuploidy. And this is a good publication of 7,753 embryos from 900 IVF cycles in 60 clinics. He said that number of the embryo increasing, but the aneuploidy of the blastocyst is not increasing. But as age increasing after 35, you can say around 45 to 50% of the blastocysts are aneuploidy. Even our experience, as we are routinely doing more than 36 or 37 years, we're explaining the patient of PGT, and we are having a lot of experience on that. If we segregate our data of 1,000 embryo, the patient, those who are having more than 36 years of the age, then we are also having 35 to 50% of the embryos are aneuploidy at the end of the day. So now we can understand, yes, age is going to increase the aneuploidy, and after 40, the aneuploidy rate is very high. Before to start stimulation, the logical question in my mind that what dose I can stimulate, or I can go by the higher dose. Somebody says I will go by the only minimum stimulations. Why this logic is going in your mind? Because the previous publication is saying that if I have a mild stimulation, then I have an aneuploidy rate is less. So the question in our mind is still that will stimulation increase the aneuploidy? And the answer is something different by the previous publication before 2012. And at 2012, this is a retrospective study on the donor oocyte and comparison of unstimulated 46 cycles of stimulated 307 cycles. It says that the mean chromosomally abnormal embryos rate per subject is almost similar. And it suggests that that means the use of moderate dose of gonadotropins for ovarian stimulation during IVF cycle does not significantly increase the abnormality rate in young normo-ovulatory women. Then what about the hyperstimulations? This is a 2017 publication, retrospective data on the donor oocyte. Only the drawback of these two studies, they are on the donor oocyte. They say that higher the embryos, higher number of the oocyte retrieved, higher the euploid. So we can understand now by these all publications that moderate stimulations or stimulation doesn't going to be increase the euploid. This is also a very good systemic review and meta-analysis. We say that if you have a more top quality of the oocyte, will in turn more the oocyte, more the euploid embryo, more the top quality of the embryo. So by looking to all this condition, we can conclude that minimum 6 oocyte is required to form one euploid blastocyst. But if you have a more oocyte, then you have a more euploid embryo. And you require more oocyte, especially when age is higher. That is what we can feel the conclusion. The last publication, which is very good, and this publication is there is a comparison of low AMH, and that means 0.5, less than 0.5 AMH, and 1.2 and 4.8 AMH, and per oocyte conversion into blastocyst. They say that in both group, whether the AMH is low or whether its AMH is normal or higher, the per oocyte conversion of blastocyst ratio is not going to be same. Same that we can say less than 5 oocyte. The second diagram, which shows the less than 5 oocyte. If AMH is not that, then they have a comparison of less than 5 oocyte and less than 10 to 15 oocytes. Then per oocyte conversion, average ratio to blastocyst, it is same. So AMH is not going to be decrease the conversion to blastocyst ratio. This is the good publications. So we can understand that more the oocyte and more the euploid embryo. That is the last conclusion from our side. Now, if you have a more oocyte, then what will be the threshold? We know by the publications that minimum 6 oocyte, if your age is less than 6, is required to form a euploid embryo. But then we are interested in the pregnancy live birth rate. That is what we are focused. Then what is the upper threshold when we have a more live birth rate? So what are the upper threshold of the age where IVF success rate is more? And when we are talking about the live birth rate, we need to talk about the phase cycle transfers and frozen cycle transfers. So this is a retrospective data, used data of HFEA in UK, 4,01,135 treatment cycle. And if you ask me that the average success rate, it will be around 21.3% in phase cycle success rate, where the oocyte collection is 15 or more. So it says something, whatever the age is there, the live birth rates will be increasing when the number of age is increasing up to 50. At the 15 number, so upper threshold is 15, where phase cycle transfer success rate is higher. And when it goes beyond 20, it is not because of the egg quantity, it is because of the higher estrogens and higher progesterone, shift the window period, and will lead to a low implantations. So we can consider that 15 is the threshold to get better output, a better live birth rate in the phase cycle. Then what about the frozen transfers? As world is moving toward frozen mode and transferring the next cycle, we can say something about Christophe Bloch's study in 2016. It's a beautiful study, and it says something about transferring a single embryo in the phase cycle transfer, and the remaining embryo will be transferred in the frozen cycle. What is the threshold of the oocyte where we can have a higher live birth rate? And looking to this publication retrospective data, we can say something around when the oocyte collection is more than 15, look at the cryoaccumulation live birth rate. It is around 60%. So whenever the age quantity, upper threshold is more than 10 or around 15, you can have a more than 50% live birth rate in a succeeding transfer in the frozen transfer cycle. So now we can understand that even you want to get a good live birth rate, you require more oocyte. And the upper threshold of the oocyte is around 15 oocytes. So we can say upper threshold is 12 to 15. The minimum threshold is 6 when the age is less than 35. Now, to look into all these thresholds, now we understand that if we want to get a 12 to 15 number of the oocytes, we want to start with these stimulations with FSH or HMG. So now the question is there, what is the dose? What is the threshold? Is it we are getting with 150 IU, then why should we start with 300 IU? So the logical question in mind that which protocol, because we need to also suppress the LH activity. Which gonadotropin, either it is FSH or it is recombinant FSH or is it HMG? And what will be the starting dose? And if I'm starting dose for everybody, that is it one size fit for all, or we have to individualize to help and when? So now we will start. The first question is which protocol? So we know that there are 3 routine protocols in our routine practice. I will say not 3 nowadays, because the publication now it says clearly that ultra short flare protocol doesn't going to be increase a live birth rate, especially in the hyporesponder, or we can say the decrease organism. So now there are 2 true protocol which is will be using regularly in our clinical practice. It is maybe antagonist protocol and agonist protocol. If you ask me antagonist protocol, everybody is knowing that adding antagonist on 6th day, then it's considered as a fixed antagonist protocol, or whenever the size is reaching more than 14 mm or 13.5 to 14 mm in both ovaries or 4 follicle, we are adding antagonist, then it is considered as a flexible antagonist protocol, and publication is much more favor in the flexible antagonist protocol, where the gold standard, the past agonist protocol, it is also one of the part of the treatment. As we are always knowing that minimum 10 days of down regulations of the expected date of the menstruations, and 0.1 milligram per kilogram, minimum 0.5 milligram, we are going to start in the dose of liprolide or triptorelin, which is available the agonist in the market. Now, what are the advantage? Why we choose antagonist, and what is the role of agonist? Is it antagonist? Is it agonist? Where to use? Which is better? I would like to say there are certain advantage of antagonist. This is the Cochrane database review. And the why antagonist, I will say yes. Level 1A evidence in Cochrane data that it reduces the OHSS. And this is what we are always, safety is the priority. So antagonist treatment, antagonist protocol will be the choice of treatment level 1A evidence in all the hyperresponder patients. This is level 1B evidence that it is around reduce the dropout ratio. The antagonist is having more compliance and compared to the agonist. But then there are a lot of people are using a depot. But then there are some study which is not in favor that depot is having more prolonged down regulation. Though I can say something, when you are using agonist, there is a threat. There is something clinical evidence that it will down regulate more, and you require a help of HMG, or you require a help of LH to add to a rescue effect on the FSH. Now, the third thing, the advantage is yes. Why we are working for adding whatever the protocol you're adding, whether it is agonist, antagonist, everybody is working on the one, it is say live birth rate. And this is the Cochrane database which says something like that, a live birth rate are safe. So the 2 school of thoughts and 1 school of thought, the people are believing that yes, antagonist for all, because if there is a live birth rate is fine. If there is a safety OHSS rate and the dropout ratio is less, then why not antagonist for all? I can share something that yes, I am at my center, we are using antagonist for all, but I'm not going to criticize people, those who are using agonist protocol. Might be possible. I always believe that physiology is physiology. Once you treat with the antagonist, especially in the hyporesponder, in that condition, if there is a desynchronization, if there is a less number of those sites with the antagonist protocol, even synchronization is there, in that condition, you can use alternative of agonist protocol. Or sometimes might be possible you will end up with the bad oocyte collection with the use of antagonist protocol. You can use alternative of agonist protocol. So let me tell you that this is what about those who are using antagonist protocol for all, they might have to use this agonist protocol in these 2 situations. And what will be the output? That is always dynamic. But let me tell you, there are a lot of organizations using agonist protocol for all. then there is a trouble, especially in the more prolonged down regulation, especially in the poor responders, and which will lead to a less oocyte collections. Or you need to add HMG or LH in the form of HMG or LH when there is a down regulations more in certain populations, where you need to add antagonist protocol in the next cycle. But then look at the guidelines of the ESHRE guidelines by using agonist and antagonist. For the safety and efficacy level 1 evidence, they say antagonist in hyperresponder. They will say you can use agonist or antagonist in hyperresponder depending on the synchronization oocyte collection. And they will say something like that in normal responder, you can use antagonist protocol for the safety. So at present, I will say antagonist protocol, especially normal responder and hyperresponder. Agonist, you can take whatever the collection of the number of the oocyte at the end of the day. Now, which gonadotropins? Which gonadotropins? So ultimately, we can say something about that urinary gonadotropin and recombinant, and HMG or recombinant. So I like to say something, those who are having a leupride agonist, those who are doing leupride agonist for all. And I know that because of the agonist protocol, there are profound down regulations. And because of the profound down regulation, for the rescue, you need more HMGs. And by and large, if you add HMG in these populations, you will have a higher results. So yes, if you are using HMG, you might have a slight higher live birth rate, though I'm not agree on that in all patients. There are a lot of studies in favor that you require more days of stimulation with FSH when you are having down regulation with the GnRH agonist. Where, well, I'm using antagonists, especially all the cycles. So I say something, either you are using HMG or this is the publications or recombinant FSH, which will be same. But then again, I'm not agree to use HMG, especially when you have a high dose of HMG, then there is a chance when you are having high LH, then you will have a bad quality of the oocyte, might in turn lead to the bad quality of the blastocyst. So I'm always following the physiology, and by the physiology, I'm more used to recombinant FSH when I have an antagonist cycle, and I will add LH. I'm not going to oppose the LH, and especially HMG. I'm saying that I'm adding LH when it is required. So when it is required means whenever there is a subendogenous LH is low, we need to find out the certain population. When you are having antagonist protocol and recombinant FSH, you need to give a combination of recombinant FSH and HMG. And I would like to say something. There are a second group of populations where you need to add the HMG. It is especially what we are discussing, hyporesponder. That means LH polymorphism that we will discuss later on my experience. And this is a retrospective 28 studies meta-analysis, and they concluded that decision making should thus be based on convenience, availability, actual cost, and patient preference. In India, we need to also focus on cost and patient preference will be there. So now we understand that if you want to the school of thought, there are two school of thoughts. If you are doing antagonists and following the physiology in that condition, recombinant FSH and adding HMG or adding LH in the special hyporesponder or age is higher. And when you are doing an agonist protocol for time, you require more rescue adding HMG or LH in that cycle. Now coming to the next dose point of view, good prognosis patient, normal responder, and hyperresponder. The question logically in our mind that what is the starting dose is one size fit for all. And there are two publications. One is randomized controlled trial of around 60 patients are using 150 IU recombinant FSH and 225. They end up only oocyte collection ratio. They say the oocyte more collected in the 225. But then again, either to use 150 or 225 IU, this is what we are confused. So this is another one publication which making something to all that we use 150 IU. So there is a comparison versus 100 versus 200 IU, and there is a comparison with 150 versus 200 to 250 IU or more. And the output is that when you use 100 IU, the more cancellation, more less number of oocyte hyporesponse is there. So now we understand that your threshold starting dose should not be 100 IU recombinant FSH, it should be 150 IU. When they compare 150 IU, 200 and 250 IU, they might be end up with that number of the oocyte is higher in 200 and 250 IU more, but they say that cryoaccumulation embryo will be qualitative, cryoaccumulation embryo will be stable. So they still, and by this meta-analysis, they say that you can start with 150 IU, though 250 IU is only adding a cost. So now we can understand that either we can start 150 IU or either we can start 225 IU. Now we are confused that which is the dose. So starting dose threshold may be 150 IU or starting dose maybe a 225 IU. Let me discuss, because the Cochrane database still says that there is no consensus about starting dose either 150 IU or 225 IU. We will discuss in later slide in which patients we can start 150 IU according to AMH and 225 IU according to AMH, and then we will also segregate that in which patients we can use 150 IU according to LH polymorphism test, and in which patients we can go by 225 IU. But before that, we can discuss about the good responder. What is hyperresponder? It is hyperresponder. What about the hyperresponder? In hyperresponder, I will say something again. This is a publication, randomized controlled trial versus 100 IU and 150 IU. They say that the OHSs are similar. So for getting a better improvement of number of the oocyte, more the oocyte, more the euploid embryo, still 150 IU considered as a threshold to start a dose in hyperresponder. This is again a publication of using HMG, the megaset HR trial. They said 150 and 225 IU of HMG is equally good, or they say more good, to getting a phase cycle transfer, reducing the progesterone level, as well as they said something more euploid embryo. Still, it is in the study in the pipeline. So at present, it is not published. We can say, fine, we are waiting the output of megaset HR trial. But then, what is our aim in hyperresponder? OHSS free clinic. I want to discuss more that, so that we can have a segmentation. Old Labroy publication in 2011, and that is what we are doing in our clinic, that antagonist protocol, agonist triggering, and freeze all the embryo. So in hyperresponder, whatever the dose you are using, basically we all people are doing freeze all strategy to make our clinic OHSS free. So now we understand by looking towards this good prognosis patient, either our starting dose will be 150 IU or 225 IU. The two threshold is there. So what is in our mind, that how can we individualize? We can individualize with the help of the AMH. And if we see the AMH mapping, the AMH, when it is more than 3.6, then we can use a 150 IU of the recombinant FSH. But if it is between 1.2 to 3.6 or 2 to 3.6, then we can go by 150 to 225 IU. Now still there is a problem in normal responder, whom to 150 IU and whom to 225 IU. That we will discuss later on in polymorphism. Lastly, we can say when the AMH is less than 1.2, we can give by 300 IU RFSH. So now by this AMH, it is very clear that whenever the patient is having a high AMH, we can go by 150 IU. And when the patient is having a low AMH, you can have a highest dose of 300 IU. Only we are confused that either in which patients we can increase 225 IU and why. Now we will discuss about the low prognosis. So before to start low prognosis, what is the definition in my mind of low prognosis? And you know that previously that we are only considered age is the low prognosis, but it is not like that, because we need to also concern the patient, those who are having a good age, but there is a hyporesponse. If he's having a good age, good AMH, but the oocyte collection ratio, oocyte age is less. So we need to also focus the patient, those who are having a good prognosis and converting into the poor prognosis, low prognosis by the previous stimulations. And we need to also discuss about the previous Bologna criteria, where we can, there is heterogeneity regarding the age. So we need to divide also the age less than 35 and also AMH is low and age is more than 35. They are the proven poor responders, decreased OND, so that we know that because AMH and interfollicle count is. In 2016, by the Poseidon, it has been divided into 4 groups: Group 1, Group 2, Group 3, and Group 4. Group 1 is less than 35, and Group 2 is more than 35. Now, this is what I want to say, that how can we treat this patient, the hyporesponse. Both are having a good AMH and they are responding less. Group 3, group 4 are the decrease over increase. So for that, we need to understand what is hyporesponse. What is hyporesponse? By and large, the definition, if you are doing the leupride agonist cycle, then on 6th day or 8th day of the stimulation, if your all follicle is less than 12 mm of size and E2 level is less than 200 picogram, then fine, it is considered as a hyporesponse. This is what I'm saying in the leupride agonist cycle. I'm not talking about antagonist cycle. Then even antagonist cycle, you can have a same response, or agonist cycle, same response. What you are doing previously, you are logically, if you are on 200 IU recombinant FSH or 225, you want to increase. Maybe some people are adding 300 IU, some people are 450 IU, and some people will shift the cycle or to 450, 225, 300 IU HMG, or they will cancel the cycle and they will stimulate in the next cycle. Now I'm saying that, what do you mean by hyporesponse on after OM pickup? That is a oocyte yield ratio in terms of follicles, which is available on the dashboard. So it is considered as a FOD. If the FOD, that means if the follicle on the sonography, which is 15, and you will have a less 30% mature oocyte, that means it is only 4 or 5 or less than 10, it is considered as a hyporesponse. And this hyporesponse is divided into 1A, 1B. That means A means less than 4 oocyte, less than 4 oocyte, less than 5 oocyte, and B means 4 to 9 oocyte will be there. So in both conditions, there is a previous hyporesponse, previous less number of the oocyte. Their age is whether it is less than 35 or more than 35. But whatever the stimulation you started, you will have a less number of the oocyte. How can you treat? Suppose whatever the dose you would like to increase the dose, or you will change the protocol. That means you are changing on HMG. That means you are using LH supplementation, and you are increasing FSH dose. Whether you are so both, which is right? And we have a 1,000 patients collection data on that when there is a previous hyporesponse. Let me tell you something. The 1,000 patient collection data, we find out that 35 to 40% are having a polymorphism. So what do you mean by polymorphism? There is a change of single nucleotide single nucleotide amino acids on the introns of the receptor and of the chromosomes. So the normal variant is ASN, and this ASN is replaced by a serine SER, then it is called heterozygous. So if it is on the FSH receptor, it is considered FSH heterozygous polymorphism. If it is on LH, then LH heterozygous polymorphism. But when it is going by change in the both amino acid, then we can say SER, then it is considered as a homozygous polymorphism of FSH and LH. Now, what is important? I would like to say that when you are having ASN is a normal variant, but what is important, what is tough is homozygous polymorphism. And if you have a FSH homozygous polymorphism and LH homozygous polymorphism, which is tough, I will say FSH homozygous polymorphism, it is more tough. Even you increase the FSH dose, you might require more number of days of stimulations. It will go up to 14, 15 days. So advantage doing the FSH polymorphism, you can identify these are the low fertile group. And also you can understand there is no need of adding LH in this group of patients. So I can say by my experience that the tough thing is to always identify the homozygous FSH polymorphism, counsel them, treat them with the high dose of the FSH. Now we are coming to the point in LH polymorphism, you need to add LH. So which type of LH? What is either you are interested to add HMG or either you are interested to add recombinant LH, and if then what is the dose? And this is my all the explanation in my study, because I have compared in my all 1,000 patients. We started with some patient when there is FSH polymorphism, only FSH polymorphism. Suppose you can say heterozygous polymorphism. So in that patient, I will say you will use 225. And if you have a homozygous FS polymorphism, in that condition, you can have a 300 or even I can say 375. So now you can understand by polymorphism, how can you segregate the higher dose? I say by AMH, more the AMH, you can have a 150 IU. But when you have a heterozygous polymorphism with AMH, you can increase the dose. If there is a homozygous polymorphism with AMH, still you can increase the dose. Where my explanation, my experience on the homozygous LH polymorphism, we started with a 150 IU. Then we also have a combination of 75 IU. And we also have a very high dose of 225 IU. Now we believe that when you add more LH, you are 101%. If you have a more LH, maybe HMG all, or maybe adding more HMG, 100% you are going to treat the hyporesponse. But when you cross the LH window by adding more LH, your blastocyst ratio will going to disturb. The quality ratio is disturbed. And we find out that there is no need to add more LH, because if you add more LH, it will reduce the quality of the blastocyst. So by our explanation, by our experience, we understand that in the Poseidon group 1 and group 2, in that condition, there is no need to add and just be panicked to add 225 IU combinations. It is always better that you can add only 75 IU HMG. Rest that we will 99% treat the hyporesponse. If you are treating hyporesponse, then now the next is quality of the blastocyst. So I still believe that 75 IU of HMG, 75 IU of HMG is required to treat the hyporesponse, especially LH polymorphism, 75 IU. Now, where more LH is required, that I will come to in my next slide. But this is the Poseidon group 3 and group 4. We required more number of those sites. No gonadotrophy can compensate, so it might be required cryoaccumulations and repeated stimulations. But it says something like that in certain that group 3, group 4, still some studies are randomized control trials saying that if there is no synchronization, you can go by a GnRH agonist. Where at my center, what I'm doing, my experience something different. I don't have any asynchronization problem, though I'm GnRH antagonist for all. But yes, I'm always doing a estradiol validate downregulation. I know that the randomized control trial is available for estradiol validate, where they use because of the higher AMH. But I don't believe in that RCTs. I believe in my clinical experience that I say something that estradiol validate adding for 10 to 15 days prior to stimulation of the cycle, it will suffice 95% of the population to use endogenous FSH and LH in the GnRH antagonist protocol. So I will use GnRH antagonist protocol, which previously downregulated with the estradiol validate. But still, I'm not going to criticize that. If you want to get a phase cycle transfer, because I'm doing more PGT and advanced maternal age, so more freezing. But if you want to get more phase cycle transfer results, then I still believe that agonist will be the more choice of the treatment in hyporesponder, especially decrease over reserve in group 4 patients. Group 3, this is the Cochrane database review, and that say that the optimum dose for group 3, that means low AMH, according to AMH, we can start with 300 IU. If there is a polymorphism, if you have advantage, you can go by 375 IU, but I think 300 IU will treat the polymorphism. Only if there is hyporesponse, in that conditions, in next cycle, you can add 75 IU LH, or that means HMG. Doing a polymorphism, what Peter Himmelden says that already this group of the couple are having a hyporesponse because of the decreased AMH and AFC. Doing a polymorphism test is not that much of helpful. It is always more helpful in group 1 and group 2, where you can have a better output, better number of the oocyte, which can be collected by treating the polymorphism. Now, this is what about the group 4. Let me share you my experience of group 4. I know that there is an era of group 4 people are treating with a combination of 300 and 150 IU. There are a lot of studies are still having a 300 and 150 IU of recombinant LH. So there is a study of 300 plus 150 IU of HMG. There is a study of 300 of 150 IU of recombinant LH. And we used everything. We started with the HMG only in the antagonist protocol with 450 IU. Then we started with 300 plus 150 IU. And then before 2-3 years back, we started a combination with these publications, infertility study, retrospective, very small data. And we started the combination of 225 and 225. Only group 4, looking to that. Now I'm saying that where LH is more required. because in group 4, you don't have also subendogenous LH is also less. 25% population do have a LH polymorphism, 15 to 25%. So you need more LH. So more LH, that my experience saying that even you do or add more LH, the oocyte quality is not going to disturb. You have a good blastocyst ratio. So we will be using 225 to 25 IU combination, especially in the group 4, not in other groups where LH is always having something negative. Now, if you have this problem, then this 225 to 25 antagonist protocol, you know that there are different waves in the menstrual cycle. Why not we use the luteal phase wave and more number of those like collection, the Ubedi et al. They say stimulation. Practically, it's very difficult. We started go way back in two years back when this one publication of 2015, we started in 2016-17 by the Escher publications. But we find out that in our 7-10 patients, we don't have a good output. Where we had a combination of 225 to 25 two times, we have an agonist trigger, and then we can have a SCG trigger. But looking to that, it is also very difficult to explain the patient in terms of number of the hormones, the involvement, and the finance. This is more important. But I will put it alternative options if we fail 2 times with antagonist protocol and the trial, and even if the patient is not ready, then we can go by the duostimulation. But in duostimulations, we are more interested in modified Shanghai protocol. This is what we are doing. I will modify it. I'm not using what the Shanghai protocol is using. I will start with the HMG 150 mild stimulation in the first part, giving the GnRH agonist triggering. Then I have a 225 to 25 combination. This is the last result when I failed everything. With my antagonist protocol, I 2 times fail, and even patient is not ready. This is the last resort that I can go by a dual stimulations and get the more oocyte retrieval. In alternative of the egg donation will be the last answer. So this is what about say of Poseidon group 1 and 2. Looking to this is the recombinant LH. Is all publication are adding it. I will say no, I'm not adding recombinant LH. And my experience is always very bad in antagonist protocol. If you add 75 or 150 or you don't add, I will say HMG is better in the combination with recombinant FSH. And we are always using 75 IU of FSH. HMG is required to treat LH polymorphism, Poseidon group 1, group 2, if this is LH polymorphism. No, nothing more than that. And if you want to add recombinant LH in antagonist protocol, I will say not agonist. In antagonist protocol, then you need to give only 20 to 25 IU of recombinant LH, 10th portion of the dose. Not required more than that to treat the polymorphism, especially if you are treating with the recombinant LH, because that LH is going to cross and it will reduce your oocyte quality. Group 3, group 4, I will say 300 IU will be the dose, and group 4, I already say that 225 to 25, that is our own protocol. That is what we are doing. And lastly, in the hypo response, I will say when you fail everything, the patient age is more than 40 years, the ovarian size is very small, only 1 or 2 antral follicles are visible, and patients still want their own egg pregnancy, I will say that only condition by previous all failure, the last result may be minimum stimulation with letrozole for 5 days, 6 days. 6th day, I will add HMG 150 IU and antagonist protocol, and I will go by STG and the oocyte retrieval rate. Now, what about the adjuvants in the hypo response? Growth hormone, again, the meta-analysis, which is in support of growth hormone in terms of when there is a hypo response and its previous oocyte quality is. So I'm always adding when we failed by the previous the cycle, if we don't get a good response or we cannot get a good output of blastocyst, in the next cycle I can add growth hormone in the patient. Now, how I can in antagonist cycle I can add 4 IU to 8 IU on day of stimulation to SCG. And if you have an agonist cycle, you can add a low dose growth hormone 0.5 IU or 7.5. Both are having good publication output. You can start with the agonist and give up to SCG. I'm more using 4 IU to 8 IU during my antagonist stimulations. Now about the testosterone supplementation. I like to say whatever this micronutrients, this is the adjuvants. I'm always saying adjuvants are adjuvants. Still, I couldn't come to know, but this is a publication, and sometimes because patients are always very literate and they find out I don't know whether I'm getting any good output, but I'm using testosterone, especially in the previous hypo-response, previous failure with my routine stimulations. And if I have a hypo-response in that condition, I can add testosterone in multiple IVF failure in the poor responder, group 3, group 4. I can add testosterone supplementations for 21 days or 61 days in the dose of around 25 milligram a day. That is what the gel is available in the form of the puff, and we can apply. So this is about the testosterone supplementation. This is again one novel approach of 16 patients. It is all about very dynamic approach. I cannot say something, and I don't have a lot of experience on that. This is what about the one that you fail and everything. You can also add this type of protocol to get a number of the oocyte. Now there are a lot of discussion of going on. So now before to I can say what is the standard of mild stimulation. I will say you can start when EMH is higher with the 150 IU or 200 IU. That's fine. If you use 225 or 300 IU, you are almost treating the FSH polymorphism, but then you need to also take care that you have to give it more than 14-15 days, because in FSH polymorphism, the fertility output is less. And in LH polymorphism, you need to add only one single ampule of the HMG75. There is no need in antagonist protocol. I'm not looking for the agonist protocol. Might it require more when you are using agonist protocol. Now, looking to all before starting a milestone, there is something role. I'm just giving my experience. There is something role of ratios. And then I'm saying that a 1:1 ratio is looking to more safer when you are using to all the populations. Rather than 2:1 or 1:1, I feel still that if you add HMG, that means 225 or 300 IU HMG, that means 300 IU FSH and 300 IU FH. Then I'm putting my experience that yes, this 1:1 ratio is more safer rather than you are using the other ratio. And if you are using the other ratio, then I already say that you do polymorphism, only 75 IU of LH is required, which is good for the population when there is LH polymorphism. I'm not going to criticize the people, those who are using 300, 150. I will say whatever the stimulation, whatever the mixing you are using, it is do have some side effects. Don't know in which population you have a side effects. So it is better that you can go by the lower dose and have less side effects compared to the more side effects with the higher LH. What about the stand of mild stimulations? So mild stimulations, clear cut that there is no role of mild stimulation. We have a more number of the cycles and live birth rate. This is the publication which says more number of the cycles and less live birth rate, more involvement of the patients. So I'm not interested to use mild stimulation. But only one case, if you have more than 40 years of age, previous all failure, patients still one antral follicle, two antral follicle, patients still want, then I can go by the letrozole and combination of the HMG for the mild stimulations. Trigger, I'm not going to go detail because there are a lot of lectures of trigger, but I'm just putting that a meta-analysis, that dual trigger. Where I can do something dual trigger, hyporesponder, yes. When the other follicle is lagging 16 mm, another follicle is 18 mm, yes, I want to use the dual trigger. Why? Then you can, if you give leupride, there is a sudden increase in the FSH, so it is more physiological. It will give more mature oocyte, especially when there is a lagging follicle in normal responder and hyporesponder. Apart from other cases, still I'm using SCG as a trigger. And yes, in the hyperresponder, the leupride agonist will be there. If you have something low prognosis in the hyperresponder, again, you can have to use a dual trigger. So now this is the schematic diagram that how can I use my patient, the good prognosis patient when EMH is more than 2, age is less. I will start according to EMH. I already say that if the EMH is very high, 150 IU. If EMH is normal, then I will go by 200 IU. If there is a hypo response, I will go to polymorphism test. If there is a FSH homozygous polymorphism, I can go by 300 or 375 IU, not adding LH. And if I will like to go for adding LH, if there is a homozygous polymorphism, then I will add 75 IU of LH in the form of HMG. You will ask me what is the question that what is will be Dr.Jayesh then heterozygous polymorphism. I tried a lot with the 37.5 IU of HMG, but then I find out it will not effective. Then I add 75 IU, it is also having a problem. So now I started not to use. So you can understand that 75% of the populations, because only 25% is having homozygous FSH and LH polymorphism. So more of the populations are safe when you are using recombinant FSH. And I would like to say also that I'm not something biased on the recombinant FSH because I'm believing on the physiology. I will say there is certain role of HMG when you have a one gem one combination. Might be possible it will have a less damage to those site quality. At the end of the day, when we say more AMM is group SOID in group 4, I already say 225, 225 combination. And I'm requesting to all that use these combinations and get your output. I'm 100% sure by my lot of number of the cycle that it is effective in antagonist protocol. And 300 IU recombinant FSH will be the dose of the treatment, especially when there is a PUSOID in group 3 will be there. So what is the conclusion? The antagonist protocol for all and agonist protocol for previous poor output will be the choice of the treatment. Lupride or dual triggering in PCOD or hyperresponder. Starting dose of recommended FSH according to the EMH level of the patients. Only 75 IU of HMG in any LH polymorphism is required. Highest dose of FSH should not exceed 225-300 IU according to publication, but I will say in homozygous FSH polymorphism, I will add up to 375 IU. And in PUSOID group 4, we are using 225 combinations. So again, before completion of my lecture, I thanks to SR organizers and also the Zydus people to organize a good webinar on ovulation induction. I hope that I create your all the funda clear for the ovarian stimulations. And lastly, I would like to say in the emergency COVID-19 situation, stay safe, stay home. Thank you.
We can move for the question answer, sir.
Yeah. I'm answering some questions. Let us see on my dashboard. Go by that. Can you explain more about how low prognosis can be treated? So Dr. Sushil from Ahmednagar, he is asking a question. Yes, sir, can you explain more about how low prognosis can be treated in compared to high prognosis? Can you explain more about how low prognosis can be treated in compared to high prognosis? Dr. Sushil, I want to say something about, I divided into the good prognosis and low prognosis. Let me tell you, it is just a terminology that what we are treating patients. Good prognosis means you are having a more number of the eggs, more AMH, more AFC. By and large, age is an individual factor. Age is higher, then more nuclear. And low prognosis is a patient, those who are having low AMH, and it is associated when the age is more than 30. So now I'm dividing the populations. When you start a certain dose, suppose you are doing GnRH antagonist, then you just go by EMH. And if your AMH is good, especially it is considered as a hyper-responder, that means AMH is more than 3.6, then you can have a one start dose is 150 IU or 200. I'm using 200 IU in my all normal responder and hyper-responder. I'm not using 150, I'm using 200 IU. Recombinant FSH, GnRH antagonist protocol, flexible antagonist protocol. Now, if I'm treating a population, but it convert into hypo response, means that on dashboard you have a 15 follicle and you retrieve only 5 oocyte. That means they convert into low prognosis. So good prognosis patient now convert into low prognosis. That means there is a poor response. So in that condition, you can add empirically in the next cycle with the LH, 75 IU of HMG. So you can go by 200 IU and 75 IU. Or you can add a 300 IU and 75 IU because you want to treat. But then sometimes you will be frustrated if the combination of FSH polymorphism is SCR, and LH is also SCR. We have a lot of cases like that also, where you need to have to give a more prolonged stimulations. And this most important counseling part. If there is a previous to IVF failure, with a good prognosis, what is your counseling? That why it is going on? So that is what I'm saying, that this is what I explained, that we are doing a polymorphism test and we can counsel, we can explain the patient. Dr. Sushil is asking, Dr. Devendra Kanpur is asking correlations of aneuploidy rate increasing with age. Dr. Devendra, that I'm saying that I cannot say something. What I shows, it's a publications of a certain publication with age increasing, and they have a percentage of the unemployed rate. But by and large, when I treating my populations, we do have a 25 to 45% of the unemployed rate when your age is more than 35. And when I say something, when it is more than 37, it is very high. It is around 14-50%, right? So this is what I'm saying, that that's why we are doing pre-genetic testing, especially in all cases. When advanced maternal age is there, we are always using this pre-genetic testing. Then I will say something. The third question is Dr. Rupak from Sangli. Cycles needed for successful IVF fertilizations. Very good questions. See, it is all about the counseling of the patients. When we say something about the good prognosis patient, good AMH, you can have a maximum 2 number of the cycle. That is what we decide. Because if you are not doing routinely, we all people are not doing the AM polymorphism test, you will be definitely fail in the first cycle. Maybe possibly you have a less oocyte and fertilization failure. So I can understand, we can explain that. But if you are doing a polymorphism in next cycle, then you can have an answer of that. Dr. Aditi from Mumbai, she's asking some more brief role about GnRH antagonist. See, I can say something antagonist, Dr. Aditi. I will say something. We are always using flexible antagonist. And Dr. Aditi, there is something people are saying that why you are using agonist, where agonist having a more oocyte collection, especially in the low prognosis, that is group 3 and group 4. Only advantage is there. It is advantages if you don't have a synchronization, your antagonist will have a less number of those collection. But let me tell you, you can have a synchronization by adding pre-treatment estradiol validate. I'm using pre-treatment estradiol validate for 10 to 15 days in the dose of estradiol validate 1 to 2. And I still believe that use the physiology. If you use the endogenous FSH and LH, the physiology, you will have better output rather than to suppress. If you suppress, there is a problem. But I'm not saying that in certain condition might be possible that synchronization is not possible with the use of estradiol validate, maybe OCPILs, and then the second, what we can say, agonist protocol will be the second alternative. So something we cannot zoom on something that this is for all. We need to have some alternative when you fail in the first cycle. Dr. Hitesh is asking something from Karnataka. He says that the role of GnRH right to low. I can't understand, Dr. Hitesh, what you want to ask. If you just type again your question, I still not understand what you want.
Yes, sir. We can skip the question and we can move on to the next.
And Fazalunsa Mohammed Hyderabad, sir, in the last chart you gave 225 to 25. Is that yes? This is, doesn't it goes very good, very good. See, I already say that Fazalunisa, that this is what I'm saying. I'm more emphasizing that combinations on group 4. Let me tell you, I'm saying not using in other. Don't add this combination to group 1, group 2, and group 3. Not interested when age is lower, when there is a previous hypo response, but the age is, don't add. I would like to say something. This is the combination I only want to add in group 4. That means AMH is less than 1.2. Age is more than 35. And lastly, I want to say that antral follicle is less than 10. So that means it is something around 5 to 9 or something less than 5. AFC will be there. So in that condition, Dr. Fazalunisa, we used a lot of combination, 300 plus 150, 300 plus 75. But then we believe that this population do have also polymorphism. So if you treat, see, there is a certain combination role in the population. And then after of these all combination we use, that we understand this combination is having a less side effect on the oocyte to convert into colligative, because we are using PGT. I'm using 75% of my population when age is 36 years. Yours, my class of the people are still interested to do pre-genetic testing, and we are transferring single embryo in all advanced maternal age in euploid blastocyst transfer. Dr. Sindhuma Vijayawada, she is asking about that apart from age, AFC and AMH, how should the dose of gonadotropin be adjusted according to BMI? Dr. Sindhuma, this is a very good question, because you know that there are some individualization publication and they say that higher the BMI you require more dose, but I still can't believe. I can say something that if you use a AMH, and if you use the AMH, and if you use the at present the polymorphism, in that condition the maximum dose, if you are treating with a 300 IU or 225 300 IU recombinant FSH and 75, then 99% population is taken care of. So nothing to something increasing to go by 450 or 680 age is one if BMI is higher. We are not in believing on that. We can say something AMH and AMH and polymorphism. Let me tell you. And in polymorphism, if you have a FSH polymorphism, it is more detrimental rather than the LH polymorphism. Dual trigger or double trigger is same or different? Please elaborate on timing of sync. See, we are saying that is again, yes, double trigger, that is the dual trigger. We are using a combinations of SCG and 0.2 milligrams, so 0.1 milligram the triptorelin, and we can add 2000 IU of the SCG on the same time, and then we can have a pickup. So that is what we can do about the dual trigger. And about the Chitra Shankar Chinnai, he asked, do you follow any particular strategy to minimize asynchrony? Yes, that is what I'm saying. The very good question, Chitra. Why I'm antagonist for all in the hyporesponder? If you know the hyporesponder, that means group 4 people, they have a certain endogenous FSH level is higher. So because that FSH level is higher, some follicles are higher side and some asynchrony is there. Now you need to give in previous cycle with the estradiol valrate. So I am using estradiol valrate for minimum 10 days. I can go by 10 to 15 days. So this is all depending upon on what day patient is coming. If patient is coming on second, third day, I can go by a more down. But estradiol valrate doesn't have any profound down regulation effect. And I'm giving a full marks to say rather to use to the more more down regulation with agonist is better than you can go by the estradiol valrate. Shri Harsha Raruvi Gantur, she asked something. Recent evidence suggests usage of an agonist over antagonist protocol in poor responders, also mentioned in ASHRI. See, I know that Dr. Harsha, that evidence are always evidence. Yes, there are going to publish, and if you go in the detail, see, you need to follow the physiology. What you are doing, that I understand. Somebody say something that you want a more oocyte. Your aim is getting a more oocyte in hyporesponder. That means group 3, group 4. Now, what you are doing agonist protocol. So, why? Because you are saying that I will get more oocyte for the synchrony. So, you are doing it is because of the synchrony, nothing else. It is for the synchrony. Now, if I get a same synchrony by the 10 days or 15 days estradiol valrate, then why not? One thing. And second, if you are using agonist protocol, then give me your experience, because I have a lot of experience for that. That if you go by agonist for all, I'm not talking, see, everything is not for all. Don't do all. So if you go by agonist for all, then in 25 to 40% population, you will going to profound down regulation. You require high dose of HMG to stimulate. So again, there is a problem. So ultimately what I'm saying that what you can start. Yes, if you are doing a GnRH agonist in hyporesponders, fine. You are a right doctor. And if doctor like me, if go estradiol valrate and antagonist by synchronized, I am also right doctor. But when you get a less oocyte collection, even by the profound down regulation, in next cycle you have to use antagonist cycle to overcome the hyporesponse of the agonist. And a doctor like me, when I'm using estradiol valrate, still there is no synchronization. Then I need to use agonist protocol for better synchronization certain group of the patient. So doctor, it is not for all. You cannot make a dish every time with your own available protocol. You need to understand the physiology, and sometimes this physiology is going to skip and you need to use alternative protocol. So for all, it is not like that. You have to individualize. If the previous response is not good, then you can go by the other stimulations protocol. I think so. I answered all the questions. Now, I don't think so. There will be more questions on my dashboard. If any question that I can answer again. Yes.
So till then, you can give a short takeaway message, sir.
Yes, sir. My message is something on ovarian stimulation is there. I already said something. It is not for all. And don't believe that somebody is using agonist protocol, that means they are doing well. It is not like that, because whatever you do in certain population, you will going to damage. For all, it is not possible. So when you do agonist protocol, then again, two things is going on. You are reducing the endogenous LH, and also you are having increasing the risk of OHSS in PCOS patient. That is the disadvantage of the agonist protocol for all. And when you want to do antagonist protocol for all, you have a desynchronization and less oocyte collection in the hyporesponder, and might be possible in that condition you require an alternative protocol. If you have a repeated antagonist protocol, failure of oocyte collection and oocyte quality, might be possible you have an alternative of agonist protocol. So don't be something like for all, one thing. Second, I can say use of polymorphism is so important in your practice, because nowadays what happened that you have a lot of failure cases. Now, if you sample like me, when we have a 70% cases are failed cases, then I can say that most of the failure cases because the ovulation induction in the previous cycle, so they have a hyper response. So if you sample like me, if I don't do polymorphism, then again it will be empirical treatment. So we do LH polymorphism and FS polymorphism to get the better output scientifically in the second stage. And third thing, I will say don't add LH in a high dose. Never add. I will say still I'm so much skeptical and so much doubted to use recombinant LH in recombinant FSH. I think so. If you fail to treat the hypo response by HMG, yes, in that condition might you add recombinant LH for the treatment. And last message, I can say something about that. Always stick to the physiology. So you see the menstrual cycle, whenever you don't require endogenous LH, that's fine. And lastly, one sentence, I still say something, there is a role of some combination. So I will say when you use HMG, that's why people are saying that HMG, yes, that's why I'm saying that 1-gem-1. So rather than two other combination, the 1-gem-1 is sometimes less damage to the population compared to the other all combination that you are using.
Okay, sir, there are no more questions now. We can
Okay.
end, sir.
Thank you. And thank you so much, Tejas and all Jayesh team. Thank you.
Yeah, sir, wait a minute.